Hi and welcome to Adventures with Flowers TV with me, Kendall Platt, where I share practical tips to help you learn to grow and arrange your own cut flowers as a way to relax. This is episode 40 and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to plant out plants that you've probably bought from the garden centre and they're a little bit root bound, i.e. their roots are escaping out the bottom. And they're going to need a little bit of extra assistance from you to do really well in your borders. In order to get the most out of this activity, it's really important that you start to perhaps shift your thinking from gardening being a chore and something to get done and on your to-do list to actually being something that you can enjoy. A really easy way to do this is by focusing on the act of planting out, for example, itself. So to really be present. If you've ever practiced any mindfulness, you will understand how important it is to try and really focus on the present moment. And I think with gardening, it's actually quite easy to do this purely because you are physically doing something that you can really focus your attention on. So to start with, in order to plant this plant, we're going to use a trowel. So a really easy thing to think about is the weight of the trowel in your hand and how does the grip of the trowel feel against your hand. So just something to really kind of bring your attention to there. The next thing that it's really good to focus on is the sound of digging in the soil. So if you just listen here. So you can really hear the trowel cutting through the soil, and you can also hear the when it contacts against stones, so the metal against the stones. So that's a really easy thing to kind of focus on. So ideally when planting plants, you want to dig a hole in the ground that's twice the width of the pot there. And this just allows you to break up the soil that is around the edges, and that just aids the plant when it's sending out roots into the ground, so the soil's not all compacted around it. So as far as planting depth goes, you want your plant, when you sit it in the hole, you want this bit to be level with the ground. So this one's a little bit deep, so I'm going to put a little bit of soil back in there. Now I quite like having bare hands when I plant because I like to feel the texture of the earth in my hands. It just helps me to feel really connected. And it really, just helps me again to feel present in the moment. Having said that, I am going to use a little bit of fish blood and bone, which is a fertiliser in the bottom of this hole, and I don't really want that on my hands because as lovely smelling and feeling the earth is, the blood, fish and bone, as you can probably imagine, is not quite so nice. So I'm just going to take a little handful of that and I'm just going to sprinkle it in and around the planting hole, like that. Right, now as I said, this plant is quite root bound, so that means where the roots have escaped out the bottom of the pot looking for water. This tends to happen very often in plants you buy from garden centres or suppliers, and largely this is down to the fact that they have probably been there for a little bit too long and maybe been allowed to dry out a little bit, so the roots have gone crazy trying to look for water. So when you get the plants, you will find it's quite difficult to get them out of the pot. So a really good way to assist them is just to kind of squish them, there you go, out of the pot, there we go, and you can see there's quite a deep network of roots. So if you were to just plant that in the ground, what would happen is these roots would just continue to grow round and round and round, and the plant wouldn't ever get a really good root system into the ground. So what you want to do, and I know this sounds a bit scary, but you want to rip the roots, and this just stimulates them to regrow and to spread out a little bit. So they spread out into the soil around them, and your plant will just be much better anchored then. So you can see I'm being quite vicious there. I taught this to a few ladies last year, and they were a little bit hesitant initially to tear the roots for fear of damaging the plant, which I do understand, but I promise you if you do this it will be a lot healthier. Oh, I've just seen a little worm. So that's another really good thing to notice and keep you in the present moment when you're planting things, is to look for any wildlife that you disturb. So any worms, ladybirds, there's loads at this time of year because there's not too much food about for them. So yeah, just really keep an eye out for the wildlife as well. And then I'm just going to put the plant in. I need a bit more soil back in there. So I've got to stand it now. There we go. And I'm just going to use my hands. Again, like I said, you don't have to use your hands, but if you want to, it's quite nice to connect with the earth. There we go. And you're just going to pat it in around there. And then I'm just going to make a kind of little well almost around the plant here. Now, it's early spring at the minute, so the ground is quite wet, you can see that. But when you're planting in the summer, this is a really good tip to make the little kind of moat around the plant, because then when you water, the water stays around the plant and will slowly work its way through the soil to the roots below. So I'm just going to get some water now. Right, so I've got a watering can here. I do have a rose on it, which does make quite a nice sound when you're pouring the water, but for this one I'm just going to pour it out. But again, even the act of pouring the water is a really lovely, mindful thing to focus on the sound that you're hearing. So you can see there how it stayed in that little moat. So at the minute you probably don't need to give too much water because, like I said, the ground is quite wet, but in summer this will be a really useful technique for you. So I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. I work one-to-one with women on my seasonal garden coaching, which involves a lot more of those tips to really help you fall back in love with your garden, and also to learn how to garden mindfully so you can use it as a relaxation tool. I'm based in Reading, Berkshire, and I can travel up to an hour to come and visit you in your garden to help you. If you are further afield, then I have a Mind in Bloom subscription box in which you receive a mindful gardening activity in the post every month. And the activities teach you lots of different mindful gardening techniques across the year. All of the plants that are grown can be used as cut flowers, and you will also learn how to arrange those flowers for the home or to give as gifts to friends as well. You can find more information on my website, adventureswithflowers.com, or through the link in my Instagram bio. I'm at Adventures with Flowers there too.